evening and welcome to the thorough newspaper analysis for 24th and 26th December 2022. Now, before we move on for today's editorial articles and news updates and the legal updates, I wish you all a very happy Christmas and a very happy New Year ahead. So, today we have three editorials. Firstly, notes on love, life, and law. Now, this has been taken from the Indian Express. So has been the next editorial, which is major questions about minors, which again talks about the POCSO Act and how it attacks consensual relationships of minors. Thirdly, we also have constitutional silences, unconstitutional inaction, which has been taken from the Hindu editorial. And following that, we will have the news update and the legal news as the next two segments. So, Brace Up today is going to be an actually long, thorough newspaper analysis. So, firstly, notes on love, law, and life. Now, the Chief Justice of India recently gave a speech on the changing law and morality. The speech was primarily focused on the change in social fabric, as was held in the case of Navdeep Singh Johar. The CJI went on to talk about gay rights, honor killings, and the constitutional morality of India. Now, when we talk about such social fabric, the name that immediately crops up into our mind is that of the learned advocate Ashok H. Desai, who passed away in 2020 and had himself fought the case of gay rights in the case of Navdeep Singh Johar. He also appeared in the cases of censorship and obscenity, Sakharam Binder, and on the right to life in the case of Nandini Sundar. The lecture served as an important moment for the legal fraternity to celebrate a legend who has given much to the country through his craft. Secondly, we have the major questions about minors editorial article. Now, the Chief Justice of India had asked the government to reconsider the age of consent or the provisions of the Act such that the consensual relationships between consenting adults are not targeted upon, or I would say consenting adolescents are not targeted upon. Now, the government recently informed the parliament that it had no intentions of revising the age of consent under the POCSO Act. Now, why this is problematic? The POCSO Act deserves immediate attention because of the following points. Firstly, the POCSO Act does not take a girl's consent into consideration, thus entirely desexualizing her and victimizing. Secondly, the law also disregards the changing social dynamics. The NFHS 5 data, which is conducted by the central government, shows that at least 39% of the women had their first consensual sexual encounter before they turned 18. The same survey, that is the NFHS 5 survey, also shows that 45% of the girls between 15 and 19 use contraceptives. The number of juvenile convicts booked under POCSO has also jumped by 180% between 2017 to 2021, according to the National Crime Records Bureau. Further, booking juveniles under POCSO for consensual relationships reduces the burden on the already overburdened. In fact, the judiciary has actively tried to draw a line white cases like Vijay Lakshmi versus State, which was in 2021, and Egg versus the State of Jharkhand and others, which is in 2022. Thirdly, we have constitutional silences and unconstitutional inaction as the last editorial article for today's rendition of the thorough newspaper analysis. Now, the makers of the Indian Constitution deliberately left certain gaps in the Indian Constitution so that the future parliament could include amendments that were in spirit with the needs of the people in the future. One of these gaps in the Indian Constitution, and the much debated upon article, is the time limit within which the governor of the state has to act on the bill that has been sent to him for approval. Now, in the case of Purushothaman Budiri, which was in 1962, the Supreme Court held that no time limit was prescribed according to the Indian Constitution, by which the governor had to give his assent to the bill. And this is under Article 200. Now, under Article 201, a similar ground also exists for the president. That is, there is no time frame within which a president actually has to convey his assent to a bill that has been sent to him for approval. For example, the NEET exemption bill that was passed by Tamil Nadu back in May 2022. It was sent to the president in May 2022, and the president has still not given his assent to the bill. Neither has he sent it back. He's just sitting on the bill. Now, this is often criticized upon because this is not the right trajectory for a democracy. In fact, the committee led by Justice B.P. Jeevan Reddy held that it was not conducive for the democracy if the governor or the president held his assent to the bill indefinitely. Further, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Committee of 2000 stated that a time limit of 6 months should be imposed on the governor to secure his assent. Now, when you think of 6 months as a reasonable time, it makes a lot of sense because in the case of Megha Chandra Singh versus the Honorable Speaker, Manipur Legislative Assembly 2020, the Supreme Court held that the term reasonable time in the event of disqualification petitions meant 3 months. So with that, we move on to the news updates for today. Firstly, we have intranasal vaccine gets clearance as booster option. Ramping up its anti-COVID measures amid a surge in cases in other countries, mainly China, the government has added Bharat Biotech's intranasal vaccine Incovac to its vaccination program as mix and match or heterologous booster dose. Incovac is the world's first intranasal vaccine to be approved as a booster dose. Also, this is the second heterologous booster to be included in the vaccination program after Corbevax in August. Incovac received the nod from the country's apex drug regulator as a primary dose in September and as a booster dose in November. Secondly, we have COVID's PMGK merged with NFSA entitlement of 5 kilos. COVID's PMGK merged with NFSA entitlement of 5 kg per person per month. Combining fiscal prudence and the imperative of safety net, the Union government said it would provide free food grains to beneficiaries under the National Food Securities Act 2013 as per their entitlement for a year beginning January 2023. Next up, we have the one rank, one pension scheme. Now, the Union Cabinet has approved revision of pension of armed forces pensioners, family pensioners under one rank, one pension scheme. Pension of the past pensioners would be refixed on the basis of average of minimum and maximum pension of defense forces retirees of calendar year 2018 in the same rank with the same length of service. The armed forces personnel retired up to June 30, 2019, excluding premature retired with effect to July 1st of 2014, will be covered under this revision. More than 25.13 lakh, including over 4.52 lakh new beneficiaries, armed forces pensioners, family pensioners will be benefited. Pension for those drawing above the averages shall be protected. The benefit would also be extended to family pensioners, including war widows and disabled pensioners. Fourthly, we have the National Consumer Day, which is celebrated on December 24th. The National Consumer Day or the Bharatiya Grahak Divas is celebrated every year on December 24th with an aim to spread awareness about consumer rights and the power of consumer. Consumers are protected from malpractice under the Consumer Protection Act. Fifthly, we have Goa to host first ever World Table Tennis event. Panaji, the capital of Goa, will host India's first ever World Table Tennis Series event. The WTT Star Contender Goa 2023 tournament has been scheduled from February 27th to March 5th at the Shama Prasad Mukherjee Indoor Stadium located in Goa University campus. Sixthly, we have Veer Guardian 23. India Japan to conduct first ever air combat exercise. Indian Air Force and Japanese Air Self-Defense Force are set to hold their maiden bilateral exercise, Veer Guardian 23, at Hyakuri Air Base and Iruma Air Base in Japan. The exercise will see India deploying 4 Sukhoi 30 Mk1 fighters supported by 2 C-17 Globemaster 3 strategic lift aircraft, 1 IL-78 mid-air refueler, and around 150 IAF personnel. Japan in turn will deploy F-2 and F-15 fighters among assets for the exercise. Seventhly, we have UI ranks Mahe as the most sustainable university in India. This year, 1050 universities from 85 countries participated in the ranking, from which Manipal Academy of Higher Education was awarded as the 121st world's most sustainable university in 2022. Number one in India as per UI Green Metric World University Rankings. The UI Green Metric World University Ranking is a ranking on green campus and environmental sustainability initiated by Universitas Indonesia in 2010. Eighth, we have Assam grants industry status to its tourism sector. Assam has now become an all-season tourist destination for its unique wildlife, biodiversity, and experience of an unexploited wonderland. The Assam cabinet has approved the proposal for grant of industry status to the tourism sector in the state to boost investments and generate employment. Ninthly, we have S.S. Rajamouli wins Best Director at New York Film Critics Circle. Filmmaker S.S. Rajamouli has bagged the Best Director award at the New York's Film Critics Circle as his film RRR continues to make waves in the Western markets. A pre-independence fictional story, RRR stars Ramcharan and Junior NTR as real-life Indian revolutionaries in the 1920s, Alluri Sitaramma Raju and Komaram Bhim, respectively. Tenthly, we have Digi Yatra launched at three airports for space scan entry. Union Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia launched the first phase of the centre's ambitious Digi Yatra facility for three airports where entry and boarding will be made more seamless with the use of a facial recognition system. The Digi Yatra facility will allow passengers to link their travel and identity documents and create a facial scan beforehand, which will do away with the need for them to produce boarding passes or identity cards when they arrive at an airport, drop their baggage, or proceed for boarding. Instead, passengers will need to show their face to a facial recognition camera to authenticate themselves. Now, hang on with me as we have more news updates for today. We have Pushpa Kamal Dhalal Prachanda joined hands with rival KP Sharma Oli, chairman of Communist Party of Nepal Unified Marxist Leninists, and other smaller parties to be appointed as the new Prime Minister of Nepal. And this is Prachanda's third time in office. 12thly, we have former Maldives president gets 11 years in jail. In Maldives, former President Abdullah Yamin has been sentenced to 11 years in prison after being found guilty of money laundering and bribery. Yamin was accused of abusing his position and taking 1 million US dollars from private company to facilitate the sale of ARA for a resort development. 13, we have Garuda Aerospace receives type certification and RTPO approvals. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation, or DGCA, for the first time has approved both type certification and RTPO for the indigenously designed Kisan drones by India's leading drone manufacturer, Garuda Aerospace. DGCA type certification is provided on the basis of quality check of the drones and is issued after rigorous testing for the UAVs. The type certification was introduced by the Government of India in August 2021 under drone rules, and the historic dual DGCA approval validates the Chennai based startup Stag of being India's most valuable drone startup. 14th, we have the birth anniversary of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, now celebrated as Good Governance Day. In 2014, the then Prime Minister announced the December of 25th would be celebrated as Good Governance Day. The day marks the birth anniversary of A.B. Vajpayee and is celebrated to raise awareness about good governance. 15. Spain passes a new transgender law, much to the relief of the LGBTQIA community. Spain passed a new transgender law that allows anyone above 16 to change their gender. However, the new legislation does impose some structure or restrictions on minors and kids from changing genders. For kids aged 12 to 13, a gender change would require the judge's approval. In the event a 14 to 16-year-old minor wishes to change their gender, they will have to be accompanied by their parents. Further, the new legislation also forbids the use of conversion therapy and allows lesbian couples to register children under both of their names. 16th, NSE gets SEBI nod to set up social stock exchange. The NSE of India has received an in-principle approval from the Securities Exchange Board of India to set up social stock exchange as a separate segment of the NSE. Now, the proposal was made by the government in the union budget for a social stock exchange back in 2019-20 to create a platform for listing social enterprises and voluntary organizations. Next up, we have the legal updates for today. Doctor's consultation room, not a public space. Now, the Kerala High Court in the case of Dr. K.K. Ramachandran versus Sub-Inspector of Police and another held that the consultation chamber of a doctor in a hospital is not a public space in the terms of Section 294B of IPC, while quashing a case of harassment against a doctor. Secondly, can written statements of witnesses be considered to be statements duly recorded under Section 161 of CRPC? Allahabad High Court answers. In the case of Faisal Ashraf versus State of UP and two others, the Allahabad High Court has explained as to when the written statements of the witnesses could be considered to be statements duly recorded under Section 161 of CRPC. The bench of Justice Saurabh Shamsheri observed that if the written statement has been submitted by the witnesses themselves to the investigating officer and the IO assures its genuineness and the same, if reduced in writing, shall be a statement duly recorded under Section 161 of CRPC. Thirdly, we have prosecution can be allowed to produce evidence in addition to material submitted with final report if they're necessary for fair trial. Now, the Kerala High Court in the case of Hussain versus State of Kerala and another has observed that the court may permit the prosecution to tender such evidence which appears to be essential to decide the case in a just manner, even after the commencement of the trial. Fourthly, in an IT-80 case, it was held that property transferred to mother through sale deed is a sale deed and not a gift, and thus is taxable as capital gains. Now, this was held by the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal in the case of Shri Jai Atul Bhai Modi versus the ITO. Fifthly, we have permanent lok adalat cannot entertain complaints against final order passed under Section 126 of Electricity Act and Section 22 of the Legal Services Authority Act. And this was held by the Chhattisgarh High Court in the case of Chhattisgarh State Power Distribution Company Limited versus Anil Kumar Agrawal. So this was all for today's rendition of the thorough newspaper analysis. For free study materials and TNA PDF slides, please feel free to join our Telegram channel, the link of which you can find in the description of this YouTube video, or you can scan the barcode that is given on your screen. You can also visit us at www.lawsikho.com for any further information. Thank you.